Humbug episode 3.
Oh, this is technically episode 3. This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
So, I want to speak to you about some stuff today.
I'm here to be spoken to.
Yeah. I suppose the genesis of it is that you have...
Biblical. Sorry.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I didn't even realise that. But the genesis is that you have had quite a big influence in my political views to make me, I suppose, certainly more conservative. And I was kind of struck by the thought that I had one day when I was thinking about a lot of conversations that I had with you and realising that it seemed to me that a lot of your views derive from your belief in God and your Christianity. And I kind of thought, so maybe I'm only holding certain views which only make sense on the premise that you're a Christian. So perhaps I'm some sort of hypocrite, or
perhaps you're a Christian.
Or perhaps I'm a Christian. Perhaps I am a Christian. Perhaps I am not right, and I haven't actually rigorously come to these views. So I want to talk to you about this because I think there could be some quite interesting stuff to cover. But I mean, do you actively have any link, like when you formulate your views and stuff, do you act like sort of consciously reference the Bible or your belief in God? Is it not? Is it no conscious process that happens there? That's what I'm quite curious to understand starting off. For example, when someone says, what do you think about X? Do you consciously go, well, it says in the Bible this, therefore I think that?
That's a good question. I think with respect to politics, I think historically, my opinions have been my opinions have been influenced by just like free market, classical conservative thought. So to give an example, if you asked me about my opinion on the welfare state, I would typically say I think it's a bad idea based on the things I've heard from Thomas Sowell, and Milton Friedman and the like. Simultaneously, I think that my belief in God makes those things make sense to me. So I think my belief in God, I think the explanation for why I kind of found myself drawn to certain ideas, I think ultimately lies in my belief in God, even though historically I don't think there's been a conscious process that I've undertaken in terms of thinking, okay, given that I believe in God, I'm going to therefore think about this issue in this way. Sometimes I think that sometimes I'd be surprised if sometimes I didn't directly think about whether I should go this way or that way based on my belief in God. So, for example, let me think. With things I consider to be moral issues. So, abortion. That is, for me, I think it's safe to say, I might come back and recant, but I think it's safe to say it's like almost 100% based on my belief in God. I think God gives life, and because I think God gives life, I think no one has any right to anyone else's life.
It's funny that you bring that one up, because I think that might have been that's definitely one of the times that I've had this realization. I was like getting in trouble having these conversations about abortion with people, and kind of realizing that, giving the argument about, well, to me it makes sense that it is a life, and obviously if it is a life, then your conclusion from that generally tends to be taken care of. And then I kind of realized that there is a big, that does certainly derive from Christian thought, right, about conception and stuff like that. So I was thinking perhaps which you would know better than me, but I know there's certain beliefs in the Bible about when conception happens, or in the Christian world, right? But when I heard
I don't know that. Remember your thought, right? But I don't know that there is anything specifically in the Bible. I could be wrong, but I don't know that there's a specific point that you can point to in the Bible to justify any belief about when life begins.
No, I'm wrong. I remember what it was is that God, life is given by God, and therefore it's not a mistake that He has created this life. So, and that it tends to flow from that, right?
Yeah. Well, essentially that. Yeah, exactly what you just said. God gives life. Every life is God's life. It's not. In at least in a sense, every life is God's life, and it's no one's right to take something that belongs to God. And in another sense, we will have the right to our lives, to our own lives. And again, no one else has the right to take the life given to you.
Yeah.
So.
I suppose. I thought. To me, from my own analysis of the sort of question, it made sense to me that would be a life. But then I was thinking, does this derive from some belief that there's a God? And so have I essentially adopted what is a Christian view?
Have you adopted what's a Christian view? Because I was going to ask you, why is it? Maybe we're going to get philosophical, but why is it that you think that because you have recognized that this, as some people say, clump of cells is a life? Why is it then that you think then that it's wrong to abort this life or this pregnancy or kill this baby, to be blunt?
Yeah. Well, now we're getting into matters of whether you think life is something that is worth protecting, and whether if you think it is, there is some underlying admission that you are.
That's my point.
Which is what you would, which I know is what your general thinking would suggest would be that the fact that I think this is worth defending implies that deep down I view life to be worth defending because there is a God, because the only way in which life can be worth defending in any objective sense if there is a God.
I don't know if I think you're correct, but I don't know if I'd put it like that, right? I think, how would I put it? I would say something like, well, if you think that just because, this thing can be called a life, then therefore it comes with a special set of kind of rights, right? It's almost as though you're admitting that there's some underlying kind of the word isn't framework, but there's an underlying kind of institution or structure that makes it sensible to talk about rights, because you can't really talk about rights in a vacuum. So you can't say, for you to believe that this, like, X being alive means X comes with rights. Rights only really exist in a setup where other things already exist.
Yeah.
In other words, a judicial system or something like that, where rights are conferred. You know what I'm saying? So, like, what does it mean for something to come with rights? Out of, how can something just come? Like, how can something just come into existence and all of a sudden has some special a set of special rules that apply to it, right? Like,
Well,
where do these rights come from? You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose in our case, in our society, you're not allowed to kill. You're not allowed to take a life, right? It's if you involuntarily take a life, it's murder. You're not allowed to do it.
Yes, so but that doesn't necessarily talk about that. That might be for that might just be a pragmatic policy. In other words, like we recognize that when you take one's life, that disrupts society somehow. You know, one's family. You know, a family.
No, I appreciate that, but I'm saying that there is a framework within which, if you're trying to say, if we're going back to the question of whether like abortion is right or wrong, there is a framework in our society, which we all generally accept tells us what is right and wrong, at least in a nominal sense.
Okay.
Right, and that's a judicial system.
Yeah.
And so, based on that, you could still say that unborn baby has rights because the judicial system is giving it rights in our context. And I know in the absolute, objective, eternal sense, this has less of a significance. But in terms of the general framework and context in which these sorts of debates happen, I think it is relevant.
Well, okay. So my original point was, if you seem to believe that just because I deem this thing to be a human life, it is therefore now wrong to take this life, to kill it,
based on the law which prohibits murder.
That's interesting. That's different. Okay.
That's what I was getting at.
I feel. So does that then mean if the law were to change, if murder was not prohibited, then you would feel differently? Do you? So, question being, in the law or no law, do you feel that there is something about a life that means that we do have some special? There is something about being human that means that we do have some special set of rights that are applicable to us.
I do. I think that we end up, if we follow this sort of thread, we end up in questions of whether the fact that most people seem to think that there is a morality that we must conform to and that is worthy, whether that pertains to, again, the fact that we are creatures of God and we do believe that there is a God, at least on subconscious level. So I think, it doesn't necessarily have to, I suppose it doesn't necessarily have to flow from a judicial system. I was saying that because at least that creates some sort of objectivity when having these conversations. But in terms of like the broader sense that you're
well, I mean,
bringing,
God would be the judicial.
Yeah, but
rather than administrator in that case, right? Like, as in, my point is to if rights are these I don't even know how to describe them, but if rights are in a sense these rules that are protect you, right? I guess the question is, who establishes these rules? Where do they come from, right? And I think in our experience, typically, rights are developed within a system, within a legal system, and so essentially, it would seem as though if you think that human beings outside of the humanly built legal systems that we have, if you think outside of all of that, human beings just have some special cosmic set of rights, then you would imagine that there's a cosmic kind of judicial or cosmic legal system in operation, and then you get very close to then you're on your way to God, which is what you've just said. And
then you end up sort of implicitly making that admission.
Right.
But I kind of realised that you seem to be very clear. I think you've said to me before in the past that sort of laws are not necessarily about what's right; they're about what is practical.
I think so.
And I think that sort of, I wonder. I don't know what other people think, but it occurs to me in your particular case, and I think, and I have thought about this before, in that you're generally quite libertarian,
mm-hmm.
and I think potentially that you devalue or you don't attach such importance in the judicial system
mm-hmm.
because you view it very much as secondary to a cosmic judicial system set of morals which sort of flow from God. And
I would just like to say I'm a law-abiding citizen. I don't even smoke weed because it's legal. So.
Yeah, but that could be seen as more of a practical decision than But so essentially, are you less?
That's a Christian decision. Actually.
But that's a Christian decision.
Yeah.
But are you less concerned? Are you more happy with smaller government, with less laws, with more libertarian? Because if you believe there's a God and you believe God has a plan, then you don't feel that any interference in outcomes is necessary. And so I do wonder whether your libertarian stance actually does in a lot of ways flow from that.
I don't know. I think my libertarian stance is more driven by personality than it is by my belief in God, but I haven't thought it through that much.
Yeah.
But I do know that typically I want to be left alone. I don't really care what other people do. I know I typically just like do what you want. Don't. I'm not sure. So controversially, man, this is a separate topic. But even in the case of abortion, like it's not as though we're going back to abortion. It's not as though like I feel like there is a part of me that thinks just do what you want. If you want to like kill your baby.
Yeah.
But the reason I kind of and I know that sounded crude, so I apologize.
It did sound a bit crude.
It sounded crude. I guess it not only sounded crude. I guess it was crude. But then I guess I actually do believe that's what people are doing.
Yeah.
But so that my point is, I'm libertarian. I think even to that extreme. I think I'm tempered. Like I think what tempers me is my belief in God. So to be more clear, I think without God, I would be like my personality would push me.
Be anarchic almost.
Yeah, exactly. So my personality means that I would say, if you want to just do whatever you want, just don't mess with my day.
Yeah.
Do what this is very, very crude, but killing your baby doesn't mess with my day.
Yeah.
But because I believe in God and I believe that that He's real and certain things are offensive to Him, like killing the creatures the human lives that he made, then I think that and not only that, but because I believe in God and I believe that we have an obligation towards our fellow man, right?
Yeah.
I believe that that's part of believing. I think maybe this is, I don't know that you have to believe in God, but I do think that this is a Christian thing, that you do have an obligation towards your fellow man, and therefore I consider even I don't know is it an embryo in the first week or whatever it is, even that person, I do consider that person to be my fellow man, even though their death would not really affect my day, and arguably it's better for them to never exist in this wicked world, right? But even then, I feel as though they should be given the choice to live.
Yeah, and that's why you take issue with it. This is why.
Yeah. So to answer your question, libertarianism, I think that it's not necessarily driven by my belief in God. Yeah. I think I just in general don't care about other people and want to be left alone and want to leave them alone. I also think that it works. I for some reason I find myself buying into the arguments. So maybe this is where God comes into play. I find myself buying into the kind of free market Adam Smith argument, where there's like some invisible hand at play, the hand of God, which I think is the phrase that's used, that directs human activities such that resources are ushered towards the most efficient in the most efficient ways when there is no kind of human government intervention, when it's just left to people to decide to decide what they want to direct their resources towards, what they, depending on what they value.
Yeah.
So I do buy into like free market ideas as well. I think they work. They make sense to me. It makes sense.
You believe that the invisible hand is the hand of God?
No, not. I don't. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that. But so I would say that the world has been set up in such a way. I think humans are wired in such a way that that we will allocate our efforts, our resources, in ways that make sense given our value systems. So, for example, I remember that there's this guy called Michael Medved. He's a pundit in the States, and I think he uses an example. Most of the conservatives, the free market type conservatives, use the example of like farmers in maybe mid America or Midwest, the Midwest America. I don't know American places, but waking up at like 4 a.m. To kill cows or get milk or something to transport to retailers in New York. And they say, well, it's not because the farmers like the retailers in New York. They don't have any special relationship with these people, but there is a price that the retailers in New York are willing to pay for this service.
Yeah.
And, and so without any intervention, without any kind of extra motivation from some government or like these guys have worked out between themselves that the retailers are willing to pay me to do this.
Yeah.
I will therefore sacrifice and wake up at 4 a.m. in order to provide the service. The interaction, the voluntary interaction, works because of the interests of both parties. So I wouldn't say that there's an invisible hand that. So when Adam Smith talks about the invisible hand, he's talking about how societies organize themselves in such a way that resources are moved around in society, almost as though there's a puppeteer.
Well, I wasn't implying that God has an act. When I was saying, you think
that's what I thought you meant.
No, I wasn't implying that you think he's playing an active role.
Yeah.
But I suppose maybe in my own mind I was kind of confusing. I mean, maybe just in the way that I expressed. I wasn't thinking that God like is a free marketeer, and that he wanted to happen. But I suppose it's still interesting to. So I suppose you think that. So I mean, it sounds like you sort of are bestowing rationality upon the average person and the average consumer, from following from what you said, right?
Rationality, I don't know, because I don't know that I understand the definition of that term very well, but I would say self-interest for sure. Yeah, I think that most people are self-interested, and not in a negative sense. Like most people want
But you believe that
will do things in.
But a free market basically believes that the sum of everyone acting in their own self-interest will lead to positive outcomes.
To lead to positive outcomes. Will lead to everyone getting what they want. If so is getting what you want equal to a positive outcome? If so, then yes.
Okay, so you're thinking less about outcomes and more about leaving people alone again.
Right, so what do you mean by outcomes?
Economic growth, wealth.
Oh, yeah. I mean, yes, I do. Yeah.
But that's what you. Is that what you were getting at, or were you more getting at the leaving alone side of things, right? Where you think that you believe in free markets because you believe that everyone should be free to pursue
whatever they're interested in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I believe that in a free market system, people get what they want. People get what they pay for. People get what they work for.
Yeah.
People get what they, you get out what you put in.
And how's this relate? How's this? Because you started out by saying
how does this relate to libertarianism?
To God. Because you started out by drawing a link there
between free market systems and God.
Yeah. But how your belief in free markets and Adam Smith like flows from.
Oh, so I think because I think I was essentially making the point that I think God built us a certain way.
He built us with this desire to seek out our own
interests in
our own interests, to give us give us freedom and autonomy.
And to be fair, that's controversial because I can imagine a lot of Christians disagreeing with that because, as we were talking about before, a Christian kind of belief is in sharing and looking out for others. No,
but that's also a choice, right?
Exactly. So thank you. I was about to say that because I'm not then therefore saying that being self-interested is mutually excludes.
Yeah.
Being self-interested and sharing are mutually exclusive. But I am just saying that I need to be clear because I know some people will take what I've just said to mean that being self-interested means being selfish, which is not what I mean. But,
I mean, this goes to what I was talking to with Chris, where he was saying that Christians should be socialists because they believe in gift giving, or they believe in helping the poor and stuff like that, and so the ethic of socialism is similar to the ethic of being a Christian. But again, the idea is not that there is some second authority imposing this.
Yeah. So as the phrase used was before was, yes, the Christian ethic is to give, but not to give by force, by way of, by means of,
steals the
not forceful giving. It's
the magic.
It's literally voluntary giving, which is free market.
Yeah.
Which is a free market idea, voluntary interaction.
Yeah.
So there should not be some authority, some government authority that takes what you've made and decides to use it for whatever they deem worthwhile. But if you as a Christian should give from your own, out using your free will. It should be your choice, I believe.
It seems to make sense logically, but I mean, it's safe to say that plenty of Christians don't believe in that so much. That there are plenty of Christians who believe in like forced redistribution.
Oh,
socialists, right? Christian socialists. I mean, there's not.
I don't know how many there. I don't know what the percentage, or I don't know what the percentage is. But I do know some. I don't know anecdotally. I know some people that advocate for socialist policies, but I don't know that they. I don't want to be rude. I don't know that they've thought it through well enough.
That's what I was trying to get at. I was trying to get at is it a case of them, being incoherent logically to some extent, or is there some other interpretation of things?
I think they would. I know a guy that talks about Christian socialism, and he tried to. He gave an example from the Bible. There's a book called Acts of the Apostles in the Bible, where it talks about how the disciples of Jesus, the followers of Jesus, started to share everything in between, like with themselves, like they held nothing back. They really formed a community. And this guy was like, this is an example of Christian socialism. And I suppose if you want to be, I disagree because there was no government forcing them to.
It's understanding.
Right. They voluntarily decided to. So that's what I'm saying. It's like quite a clear misconception of what socialism is if you think that's an example of socialism. But what he meant was that that they were sharing, as opposed to. So it seems to me he believes that capitalism or free marketism is selfishness, and the opposite, socialism, is sharing, which is false, right? Sharing is probably voluntary sharing, pure shit, sharing that comes from a pure heart is probably more likely to be fostered in a free market system where people have more freedom to do what they want with their resources. So so I do know some people that try to use Christianity, Christian teaching as basis for socialist ideas, but I don't think that they've thought it through. I don't think they understand.
Yeah, I mean, I find it interesting that there is this correlation between atheism and socialism, and it is interesting when you think about the sort of the compulsion in Christian circles and being in religious people to give and to help the less well off.
Sorry, this is random, but I feel bad for the way I kind of casually said "kill your babies" earlier on. I feel like if anyone does actually end up listening to this, I don't want them to be put off by my kind of crudeness or abruptness sometimes.
Yeah, well, you're just following a logical.
Yeah, no, but it's still I should be. You should. So if anyone ever does listen to this, I apologize. I wasn't trying to offend anyone. I have friends who've had abortions and stuff like this. I know it's a big deal, and I know it's a heart-wrenching decision. So I'm sorry if I sounded crude. So sorry. That's it.
I'm glad I've been bubbling up inside you.
I know that like I can imagine if someone listens to this, like at that point they would just be like, I'm done with this.
Yeah, you'll be doing absolute damage.
So for
to
the people
ratings.
that continue to listen after that point, I apologise if that sounded. I shouldn't have spoken like that.
Yeah, but yeah, that was mean. Socialists and people that want to see that sort of system through are probably in some ways threatened by Christianity. If as what we've kind of said, there is some strong link between people being free to pursue their interests and also to share with others, and for that to be the sort of framework and the dynamic which kind of helps redistribution and helps people not fall through the cracks and stuff like that. It is interesting to consider that there is, in communist society, there's does seem to be quite incompatible. Like on the flip side, I'm more and more coming to the opinion that capitalism can only be justified morally. Like if you have capitalism and you don't, and in some ways I'm being critical maybe of socialists and generally my stances, but then sometimes I think if you think about the alternative and you think about capitalism, where there are no Christian values and where people don't have the compulsion or feel the need to think about others in the same way you said, you with the abortion thing, you being your natural tendencies of being libertarian and stuff like that. You just think so long as I'm left alone, it's all good.
Yeah.
And so it does end up painting a picture of quite an ugly society if you didn't have this need, and capitalism can become quite ugly. So I've started thinking that capitalism can only be justified if it has some support system, whether it's Christian sort of belief in redistribution and helping poor, whether it's the need for family, whether community and things like that.
From what I hear, and from what I did a little bit in uni, a system of capitalism has prerequisites. One of them being like a sturdy legal system, because you need to, within such a system you need trust, right? You need to know that when you draw up a contract with someone, you can, and if they don't adhere to it, then you can go to the government or the law to make sure that you get what you agree to. So I say that to say that even taking out Christianity, there does need to be some sort of moral system at play in order for a capitalistic system to work anyway. And I also want to say that like the whole sharing ethic and redistribution isn't a Christian. I'm not
saying it's intrinsically and exclusively.
I feel as though it's not exclusively a Christian.
It's not intrinsically and exclusively. We're talking about the context of your Christianity and your views.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to figure out whether I'm being
Jews would say they're very
Jews, Muslims would also say same.
And atheists too, even though
you'd say they're being inconsistent as well.
Yeah, I don't think I hear that you can't. It's very difficult to understand just how much religion, especially in our context, the Christian faith has influenced the things that we consider to be norms, right? These rights and such that we go on about all the time. You know, this whole helping the poor, and it's I think it's quite difficult to overlook just how much, and it's quite easy to overlook. I hear it's quite easy to overlook just how much Christianity has played a part in instilling these things into our culture, into our particular culture. You know, so
I mean, it does seem there is a decent case for how conservative, small government, free market would flow from a belief in God. I mean, but how would you? Because I suppose you're just thinking about when these things might be conflicted. So, what's the difference between people pursuing their own interests and often to the expense of other people, which might, when you're trying to make a transaction, you're not trying to help the other person, right? So you might, in some ways, in a negotiation, you are trying to position the whole thing so that your interests are seen to more than someone else's, and so there is some conflict that happens then with regard to, say, a larger government implementing policy.
I don't know about that, but sorry, I'll let you finish.
With regard to like a larger government saying, okay, we're going to redistribute, we're going to tax you, we're going to create an NHS, we're going to put money into a fund and create public schools and all this kind of thing. What's happening is people are saying, this is still people's decisions, but I suppose your issue with that would be that they are sort of stamping on other people's ability to pursue make their own decisions and pursue their own ends, right?
So, so your example is like with using taxation.
Yeah, because I think you think that. So, I'm saying that it's a convincing case because we're saying that, God imbued in us this and gave us this license to, come onto the earth and, pursue our own happiness and make our own decisions, whilst also taking care of other people and things like that. But how is that distinct from someone saying, from a government saying, okay, we're gonna tax the rich and give to the poor because we're trying to. These are our decisions that we're making, and we're doing so.
It seems to me that's fundamentally a misuse of the government power. So I guess I fundamentally I don't accept that that's the role of the government, to be a redistributive force, right? But I think they're there to govern as opposed to but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's wrong that they're doing this. But I think that's one point that I think it's fundamentally not what government should be doing. Two, in terms of why I don't like the idea of taxation to fund some sort of ostensibly altruistic cause. I just want to use the word ostensibly.
It's not. I mean, it's a decent word. It's not the best word.
What's the word?
I think ostensibly is quite inelegant. It's a good word. It's not a bad word. I just think it sounds. I don't think it's a bad word. I think there's plenty of other words which sound nicer.
Like what?
Aesthetic.
Okay, fair enough. So,
I mean, there's others. There's nothing that special, but that's. And it's quite a good one because obviously you said aesthetic has a nicer aesthetic. So
what I meant is in that particular case, though. Like,
in that case, yeah.
Anyway, so going back to what I was saying. So number two, why do I think it's wrong that they would tax?
And again, why? And again,
what's the distinction?
Yeah, with the first principles about all this flowing from God.
Yeah.
How is that distinct in the eyes of God? I mean, it could be that it's not, and I suppose we're trying to ascertain this broader question of how much of it does just follow.
So I suppose with the God component, I suppose the question with the God component, I think most things to do with God are matters of is it right or wrong, right? So I guess the question is it right for an organization that are meant to work for us to take from us the things we produce to and redistribute it as they see fit. I see arguments on both sides. I tend to lean towards the no, it's not right. I don't, I believe what's mine is mine. I should be able to do with it as I please. I believe I have that right for some reason. Maybe this goes back to God somehow. But I can see the argument that while we have a process, we have a democratic process, and we vote for these laws, we vote for these governments, and part of the democratic process means you have to accept. You like it's if you're on the losing end of the stick, so to speak, you can't then really turn around and say, well, it's immoral what they're doing or it's illegal. It's like if you had won, if your preferred politicians are in power and pushing forward the policies you prefer, to be consistent, you would have to consider that to be unfair as well. But you normally, I wouldn't. I would say, well, yeah, they're doing the right thing. They're not taxing me as much as the lefties would be taxing me, and they are, they don't care about all these socialist institutions that the lefties care about, and so I can see that argument as well. So when people I don't like are in power and doing the things I don't like, I can't really moan. I think in terms of the underlying principle is should they be doing this? I think that's what I fall back onto. Like, is this the purpose of government? Is that what they're there to do? Is this the right use of government? Right? Because I think when you start to do when you apprehend a person's resources, you become their ruler and not their servant.
Yeah.
And that's my issue. That's my issue with it. I think it puts government in the position where they can kind of dictate to me in a way that they shouldn't be able to, because they have power over my resources and they have the legal use of force. Yeah. Right. So.
I think like if all men are equal unto God.
Yeah.
Then it would seem that this is improper use of government, right? In the sense that government should not exist in order to create some authority which can just do what it wants. It should purely serve individuals, right?
Yeah, I mean, and even in terms of doing what it wants, we still have to qualify and say, well, at least in our culture, there is a democratic process. We do vote for these things, right? But yes, I agree that
but you still think it's wrong, even if it's
yeah, exactly. I think what underlies that we shouldn't even get to the point where we can vote for these things, right? Like in other words, I would say the things that we should vote for, there should be a very small pool of things we can vote for, and what is done with our resources with respect to, social institutions shouldn't be one of these things that we vote for. Like it should. So there's I'm going to misquote this thing now, but I remember there's this economist called Walter E. Williams, black economist, he's like in his 80s, talking about how sorry, my history's bad, but in the original, one of the forefathers of the states stood up in Congress or wherever these people meet, and because at that time they were trying to put forward, maybe it's called a bill, I don't know anything about that, clearly I don't know, a bill which was for the purpose of it was like a welfare type thing. And then this guy stood up in Congress or the House or whatever, and he was like, I don't see anywhere, he took out the bill, the Constitution or something. He's like, I don't see anywhere in here where we wrote about redistributing resources for the purpose of like altruism or whatever. He like stood up and he's like, "This is not within. We don't do this.
What is this guy called?
I can look it up. Yeah.
It's the
But
economist.
Walter E. Williams was talking about it. He's
yeah.
like, this guy stood up and he was like, "This is not our function. We're not supposed to like." The question wasn't about whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's like we are going beyond our limits here. This is not what we're here to do. Because I think the moral of the story was, well, what Walter E. Williams was trying to drive at is it's so easy to creep into authoritarianism. You know, so easy to creep into, you know, under the.
But once you've broken the principle, you basically anything goes by extension.
And it could be, as they say, the road, as Thomas Sowell says, the road to hell was paved with good intentions. Like it's.
Is that Thomas Sowell quote?
It's probably not a Tom Sowell quote, but I've heard it from Tom Sowell.
It a lot.
The road to hell is paved with good intention, so it's probably for the purpose of trying to do good, right? Like we want to help people, but it so easily creeps into like, you know, well, we want to help people, and if you decide that you're not going to help us help people, we're going to, you know, put you in prison.
Yeah.
You know, or if you decide, you know, again, there's more to it. You have to qualify it. We vote for these things. That's part of the package. We give governments, you know, the power of the law. But the point is,
what if, you know,
should they even be able to get to this point? You know?
If people feel that mankind's lost its way and that there is too much suffering, and that, you know, could it not be a Christian purpose? You know, something that's consistent with Christianity to say, okay, we're going to campaign, we're going to get in power, we're going to take these funds and we're going to put them to moral ends, to more moral ends, because most people are corrupt in our society, and that, because the passive approach of just hoping people redistribute and stuff like that isn't working. People and perhaps people aren't even not doing it and claiming they will do. They denounce God and they denounce Christianity. Could that not be consistent with a Christian worldview? Could that not be something that?
Could you repeat that? Sorry.
Also, whether people take power, you know, through democratic means, and they basically say there's too much suffering in this world, and we must forcibly redistribute in order to maximise. You are stamping other people's power, on other people's freedoms there a bit more, but you are seeking greater outcomes. Would that not be? You're seeking better outcomes and more balanced outcomes and less suffering. Could that be justifiable to you, like as a Christian, in some ways? Or is there some? Was that there's often a hierarchy of principles, I suppose.
Yeah, I think freedom comes very close to the top. So,
and how does that relate to God again? If anything, because maybe it doesn't.
I think you said it before. I think that for some reason I believe that all are equal under God.
Yeah.
And so the notion that any one man or group of people can decide that because they believe something is true, they believe something is correct, then they are justified before God, or justified. Because even when you talk about being justified in your decisions, like I think it's very hard to talk about that without reference to God as well. But that's another topic.
Doesn't it flow that there should be no government then? Like what is?
Well, just to finish the thought, because if we're all equal under God, then the idea that one person or any group of people can say that because they believe that because of what they believe to be correct, they should then like force me to do something, you know. I think that doesn't work if we are all equal under God, because that means then that because by doing the I am right, there is too much suffering. I'm going to force you to behave in this particular way so I can fix the suffering. I'm treating you not as an equal because with you persuade your equal, right? You don't dictate to your equal.
Yeah.
Right. That's a Milton Friedman type of idea. that there's something about human dignity, which I think human dignity again is tied to belief in God. Like all of these concepts about this special something that humans have doesn't really make sense unless we are, someone gives us this special. We don't give ourselves this special something. Something isn't the case just because you say it's the case, right? Just because we say humans are special doesn't mean anything, right? But there's this Milton Friedman idea that human dignity is the type of thing that means that he goes as far as to say if someone's going to commit suicide, someone's going to jump off, and people disagree with this. A good friend of mine, the Godfather, be one of them. Just because Milton Friedman says if someone's going to commit suicide, their humanity and the dignity that is conferred upon them because of their humanity means that he would not prevent them from doing so. He would do everything in his power to persuade them from killing themselves, but he would not force them not to kill themselves. He believes that they are, that they have so much right over their own life.
Yeah.
Right. They have so much, the right to the right to their own life, the right to their autonomy. In his mind, is paramount. So much so that he would not use force to stop them from killing themselves. He would do everything he could to persuade them. I follow that line of reasoning.
Well, it's interesting. It's almost interesting, sort of definition almost of freedom, because it seems to be quite clearly defined up until the point of like physical power.
Yeah.
Like, because you could
but
say, well,
obviously not just physical. If you forced any type of force even if it's not physical restraint. But
what's the distinct? Like, what is, if it's not physical?
Yeah.
What is forcing someone?
Oh, it could be. If you kill yourself.
It could be threatening.
Yeah, right. If you do commit suicide, I'm going to do this to
your family.
Exactly right. But so I think Milton Friedman would be against that.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's not necessarily purely physical.
No, but that's I said it's not purely physical.
I wasn't disagreeing. I was.
I think he means that what it means to respect another human being is to, really, to the extreme, allow them to make their own decision. Do whatever you can to convince them, but do not force them.
Yeah. So, it's a hard line to draw between if you're forcing them. For example, like we've spoken in the past about like manipulation, and who's to say you're not? Who's to say your choice of words aren't forcing them, aren't making that it's not so clear to draw lines there, right? It does get a bit messy.
It's pretty clear to me.
I think particularly if you, I don't know, once you study Carl Jung and Freud and you start to understand these different levels of consciousness, and you understand this unconscious string puller, which is the self,
right?
And you kind of realise that, well, people are often manipulating other people. Like, is the use of...
But if they're not conscious of it, right?
Yeah.
Because you're saying that it's... right. So if a person is not conscious of their actions...
They might be forcing someone on an unconscious level, right?
But the whole point is whether you're conscious of it. The whole point is whether you know that what you're doing is force.
Does it matter?
I think it. Yeah, I think that's.
So people's intentions are the only thing that matter, but how do we define their intentions? Because one is their watered down, rationalised to their own ego intentions versus their true, deeper intentions. So
Milton Friedman says that for him, he wouldn't use force. He would persuade. He would attempt to persuade, right? And you're saying, well, even when he attempts to persuade, there may still be an element of force within that because he might be doing that subconsciously, right?
Yeah.
So I think what he would, I'm speaking for him, I don't know that that's a wise thing to do, but I think what he would say in response to that is that, what matters is what he believes he's doing, right? Because this whole exercise is to try to understand what it means to respect another person. So if what it means to respect another person is to persuade rather than to force, then it doesn't matter that in your attempt to persuade you might be forcing. It's that you think that you're attempting to persuade.
What? Yeah.
And that therefore means you're attempting to respect the other person.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm being too pedantic there.
Perhaps.
But I mean,
what you have been known to.
I mean, you're usually the pedantic one.
I am usually the pedantic one.
But what this was related to something.
God, somehow.
Indeed, as the most meta.
Yeah. So I think what you were trying to say is, but I think we started off by saying, what is the distinction between, the government redistributing and non-government redistribution.
Yeah, and you say, and we were talking about basically we should all be equal, and so what role does this not imply that there should be no government whatsoever?
It doesn't imply that, I think.
It does
because
not.
The government, no, it doesn't imply that, because you do need governing, right? You do need people to just as in tennis, where we decide there's a set of rules, and you need a governor. You need someone to govern the game to ensure that people are playing by the rules. Right?
Yeah, but
in the same way, you do need government, right?
So I suppose,
but government and dictating, are
but the
distinct concepts.
The tennis umpire, though, I suppose it's one of these dynamics where they have the say, they arbitrate, but they're not playing the game.
So what is the point you're making here?
Well, that an umpire or referee has authority over a player. So there is a two-tier going on there.
They have authority in the sense that they have the power to deduct points or whatever if someone's not playing by the rules. I agree, but that's fair. Like I said, we give government governments have the legitimate use of force. Yeah. If we're not playing by the rules, if we don't fulfill our contracts, right?
Okay, I suppose then the pertinent question is what the rules are and where we're drawing the line.
As I said, and I think that.
And where do we draw the line?
So I believe that governments have a very, I don't want to use the word limited in the sense that when you consider what governments do today in our culture, but not limited, I think, in its true sense, role.
Yeah.
If anyone's ever listened to that and they understood what I just said, well done. That was very hard. I'm going to say that again. So I think the government should have, this particular type of role, which some may consider limited, but I don't really consider it limited in its true sense, which is to essentially oversee our kind of internal security, and oversee our protection from external threats, which in other words just means police and army, or police and military, right? I think they should be responsible for the courts. Yeah. Right? So they should be responsible for all the functions that allow us to behave, to interact, with security. Yeah. Does that make sense? So
it does make sense.
The things that we need for us to live freely, for us to do as we please, but with some sense of security, without fear of being burgled, without fear of being harmed, just randomly, right? Or at least with the assurance that if we are harmed randomly, or if we are burgled, or there will be some retribution, there will be some compensation. But obviously, in the best possible world, we wouldn't even want to be harmed or burgled. So I think governments are there to protect and develop those institutions that allow us to interact freely.
Yeah.
With security.
Yeah. It's.
So the question is, what are the limits? Where do we draw the line? When they begin to do things that don't really fall within that, under that basic premise.
Yeah.
Then.
And when I think about it, a lot of the diversion in political stances comes back to that Milton Friedman point about freedom. Like, it comes to your conception of freedom, and everything else follows from that, right? In terms, particularly,
what is the other conception? What is the other conception of freedom?
And so, the way I learned it at university and at school was, you had negative freedom, which means freedom from restraint and freedom from force, right? Which would encapsulate Milton Friedman's, I'm going to stand there, I'm going to reason with them, but I'm not going to force them not to jump off the bridge if they want to. And then the idea was that in the Dickensian era, people realised that this was not working out well, that a lot of people might be free, but are you truly free if you are not capable of pursuing your desires and pursuing self-actualization? If you are, if you have no support structure, if you have no good education,
are you truly free if you're not capable of pursuing your own desires? Or if you have disadvantages,
are you truly,
things that prohibit you from pursuing your own desires?
If you came in a broken family,
are you truly free? Yeah, you are. Yeah.
Okay, well, this is your
conception.
This is your conception, and I can see how that concept, and so I'm saying that conception of freedom and one's conception of freedom is critical.
Right. So
it's a critical juncture.
If we say freedom is, because you're saying you're saying there's negative freedom.
I'm saying this is what we're taught.
Yeah.
And this is where the social democrats and the socialists. This was the thing that launched all of that.
So because I did cut you off and I apologise. What's the other type of freedom?
Positive freedom.
Which is what?
Positive freedom is the ability to be able to reasonably be able to pursue your self-actualization in a happy life. And so if you are born in a broken family, you're out on the street, it's a rigged society, you have no education, and realistically the odds are minuscule when you're out on the street and you're dying and you're starving. Like, how free are you really? And I know the answer to you is blindingly obvious. Because you're
absolutely free.
You are completely free. But that's a juncture, and so because I was asking you earlier about what you think the role of government should be, and it's pretty much up until we start entertaining this concept of positive freedom.
Right.
Now maybe it needs another term, I suppose, but and I don't think it's the right time to get into that sort of discussion. I think if we're going to go back to obviously the meta question of this all, given what we were talking about God and what he's imbued this license in people, then it would seem to stop. It would seem that you wouldn't. You'd be satisfied with the concept of negative freedom, right? As in, if no one is objectively being held and God has given them life and given them license to go and pursue their own, whatever future they want, then that's all they need. And that should be good enough, right? So there is no scope for positive freedom, for forced redistribution based on that. Because why would God send some people out with capacity to, no one's saying that, the Etonian Oxford graduate doesn't have the ability to pursue their own ends. They wouldn't say that. So if you then are going on and saying that, some people don't, then what you're saying is God has sort of imbued a different capacity in two people to pursue their own ends, right?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Well, you might.
I don't think that that's incorrect. I do think that that we're born with in different circumstances, with different gifts, with different, everyone's different, right? But I suppose the whole equal under God thing is
doesn't mean everyone is properly equal, but as in they are the opportunity, the opportunity in the objective sense is equal.
The opportunity in the objective sense is equal. I would say no. So maybe I'm misunderstanding you there.
Yeah, well, what I mean is this is devoid of context, right? So as in, you might have, in a subjective sense, right? One might, one could say that actually being born poor is an opportunity because you create more drive. Other people might say being rich is an opportunity,
right? Because you have using the word opportunity in ways that's very
because you have
loose.
Because you have resources and stuff like that. But in the grand scheme of things, like either
in the subjective sense, it's the opportunity to build character. That's what you mean by opportunity there, right?
Yeah. So I'm saying that
in the object in the for the rich man, it's the opportunity to, rather than to build character, to build wealth, right? Because you just said in the subjective sense.
No, I'm saying they have the opportunity to build character, which can then help them get wealth
for the poor man.
Yeah,
right.
And
therefore, they may see themselves as having more opportunity.
So
but that's when you're using opportunity in two different ways. Like, that's when you're using the word opportunity and applying it to two different things, right?
Yeah,
which is not fair. Right?
Well, my point was that there is a. In some ways, I think you're sort of confirming my point.
Okay.
Which is that yes, there are all these different contexts, and it is messy and stuff like that, and so the only thing that is ultimate is people's is whether there is some cosmic force restraining them, and God's sort of saying go out and do it, right? And so any questions of whether one's opportunity is greater than the other or all that kind of thing is sort of besides the point. The point is not whether they are both as capable, have equal amounts of talent or whatever. It's about whether they're being inhibited in any cosmic way, in any cosmic way, and they're not. So you could have two people that aren't even, but the point is you're putting them out there and go get it, and so you have equal opportunity in that sense, right? In terms of the restraint in terms of the forces that are being planted in front of them.
I think I understand what you mean.
Yeah, that wasn't most articulately put, but that's so. My point being, if it would seem that he's not going to say you're going to have these. He's not. I mean, in the Bible, he does put obstacles in front of people and stuff like that. But
look at you.
But in general, he's going to be giving equal opportunity in that sense, right? He's not going to be discriminating from people. So you wouldn't think that it was pertinent to start suggesting that we should entertain positive ideas of positive freedom where you are starting to, you're starting to impose force.
The moment force comes into it is where I depart from.
I think that is consistent with this idea of God giving people life and license to pursue their own ends. Right?
So the moment force becomes the tool by which you aim to eradicate positive freedom, then I do think this starts to conflict with God's design for mankind, which is one in which you ultimately have say over your own resources. One of those resources being your body, your mind, yourself. So and you ultimately have say over that. And what I mean by that is that no one else has more right to you than you, because God gave you that right by creating you.
I think it does. I mean, I think there is a sort of a flow there.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is. I think it is pretty consistent. And one thing I wanted to say earlier was that, with regard to you being a libertarian and stuff, was that I think because I started this all by saying, is this happening at any conscious level with you? And then you said, well, with regard to libertarianism, I would be apathetic anyway. That's my character. And I was thinking, well, okay, so even if your mission there is that there's nothing conscious happening, but at the unconscious level, does that apathy
stem from
this deep knowledge, which you're not necessarily rationalizing, but from this deep knowledge that, like, no, this is all God's plan, and so
I don't want to use the phrase God's plan, but
that's maybe
God created us to each pursue our own interests and do as we would with our bodies.
Exactly, and so that's going to sit a lot easier with you. And it's just going to make it much easier for you to kind of not entertain the idea that support should be provided in any forced sense, because you're kind of thinking, well, it conflicts it in two ways. It conflicts in there. You're thinking, well, I'm sure there's a reason for this, and on the other hand, you're violating people's integrity, and people's dignity, freedom.
Perhaps I'm very comfortable with the libertarian idea, because I do deep down believe that we all have we've all been given the I can't escape the word right to do as we please. Perhaps I wanted to say something that I can't remember. I can't remember what it was, and that's not good for a podcast. So we should swiftly move on.
Well, maybe you can save it for,
if I can remember,
for part 2.
I can't remember right now, so I'm not going to try.
Save it for part 2.
Yeah,
because I was thinking,
should we wrap up here then?
We should wrap up here as part 1, because we've kind of covered.
How long have we been?
Stuff. This is an hour 10 minutes.
It's not bad.